Hello everyone. So I feel like I've been using this Art Toolkit palette a lot throughout my last couple of videos because I've just really loved it. You can tell how much I've almost completely used up a few of these colors. So I thought it might be nice to swatch what colors I have in my palette and to kind of show what colors you can mix with it, and if you were interested in making your own or buying your own Art Toolkit palette, I thought it might be nice because you can see how I arranged it and what kind of mixes you can get from this. I have this larger size of the Art Toolkit palette, which is very exciting. So this is the pocket palette size. And then I have the folio palette, is a bit bigger, so you can see the comparison here. I have just a piece of scratch paper, of watercolor paper, and my glass of water. And I thought that I would just go through and swatch out some of the colors that I have and show you what I've been liking, what I'm missing, what I might add. The first color that I have here is the yellow that I've been using, and it's kind of a middle yellow, and it's not super warm either. I do find that it makes really nice greens, and oh, I think that picked up some of the raw sienna. And then the next color I have is another Schmincke color, and this is raw sienna. And this is a color that I actually haven't used as much, and I found that because I've always used yellow ochre, and I added this to my palette because I think I had seen someone else on YouTube using it because it's more transparent than yellow ochre, and I've really enjoyed the transparency of it, and it's a bit less muddy. So then I have another Schmincke color. A lot of this I think is either Schmincke or Daniel Smith. I think I have one Holbein color in here. But so this is Schmincke Permanent Red Orange. And this just makes really beautiful muted purples, and I add it a lot to greens that I have to kind of dull them down a little bit. And then I thought about whether or not to include burnt sienna or this color, which is Schmincke Transparent Orange. And I feel like this is very similar to burnt sienna, but it's more pigmented. And it's a really nice addition to warming up browns or adding to tree trunks. I really like using it for that. My cool red, which is Holbein Quinacridone Magenta. And sorry about the lighting. I'm trying to get the lighting to work out so that there's not so much shadow. Alright, so now on to my cooler colors. I have Daniel Smith French Ultramarine. And I haven't used French Ultramarine as much until recently, which I have my cooler blue on here is Schmincke Phthalo Blue green shade, or I think it's just called Phthalo Blue. I think their Phthalo Blue red shade is called phthalo sapphire blue. And this is kind of the similar discovery to the raw sienna because it is a more transparent blue, which is something that's new to me and exciting, and it also just makes really beautiful mixes. It's very strong, and as you can see, I did put it in a larger size palette. When looking back, I probably would have put it in one of these smaller squares just because it's so pigmented that you really don't need much. And I've used more of this French ultramarine. And I think I would have probably swapped these two and put you'll see this Viridian in this larger pan and put the phthalo blue in a smaller pan. Next up, I have Viridian. And this is a Holbein Viridian. And I found some of my favorite greens are made with Viridian and raw sienna. They just make really natural greens for landscape. And this is also a very granulating color. Before I go further, I'll go ahead and label all of these. Next up, I have, this is Holbein Lavender. And this is a really gorgeous color to mix skies with. You can add it to tree trunks for shadows. I bought the Daniel Smith lavender, and they're pretty much similar, so I would recommend either of them. Then I have Daniel Smith Sodalite Genuine, which is a dark, very granulating, kind of like more like a Payne's Gray. I would say it's pretty similar to Winsor & Newton's Payne's Gray. But this is just really nice to add to darken up colors. I'll add it to ultramarine a lot if I'm wanting, darker shadow colors. And then finally, I have Daniel Smith's Raw Umber. And I went back and forth between Raw Umber and Burnt Umber. But I just love the richness of this color, and this one is far more granulating, and I've just been wanting to experiment more with granulating colors. So I chose this one, and it's really nice when you can warm it up to make a warmer brown. You can add a little bit of raw sienna or transparent orange, and it just makes a really nice warm brown. So that is my current palette that I've been using in the first couple weeks of my 100-day challenge. It is so compact and portable. It just weighs basically nothing. And I like that there is the addition of more mixing space. I have these 2 extra mixing wells that I can use. So I thought that what might be helpful or useful is to show what kind of colors that you can mix from this palette. This is actually a few weeks later from when I filmed the first half, but I'm still loving this palette, and as you can see by how messy it is. But I'm gonna go clean this off, and then I will show you what kind of colors that this can mix. So when you're working outdoors and with landscape, probably one of the most important things to know about your colors is, or what kind of greens can they mix. And I found that this can mix a variety of greens. So keep in mind these colors are a little dirty and I definitely need to refill them. But so this is the pure yellow and it's very contaminated with, I'm guessing, ultramarine. But it can make just like a really nice grassy green that's really useful. You can make it a little cooler by adding, this is phthalo blue, and you just need the teeniest bit. And you can see that that just darkened it and cooled it down a little bit. You could add even more. And it just makes a really gorgeous green, and the phthalo blue is pretty transparent. And then you could even just, if you want it to be just more of like a turquoise color, you can add just a touch of yellow and more phthalo to it, and that's really nice. You can also make warmer greens, like the first one that had probably French ultramarine in it. So you can get some of the yellow. You could add a little bit of French ultramarine. So if it's not like a perfectly clean color, that's okay. And so that's still not warm enough for what I'm going for. So I could add a little touch of, say, yellow ochre. And then that can warm it up even more. You could neutralize it a little. So say, let's mix a little bit more green. Ooh, that's a very dark, well, here's a good example of a dark green with French ultramarine. You can see how it's a warmer, darker green. A little different than these ones with the phthalo blue. If you wanted to neutralize it, there's some options. We've got the pyrrole red, we've got transparent orange, and quinacridone magenta. So depending on what you're going for, the quinacridone magenta is going to probably make it more of a gray than the other ones, which is really nice. It's one of my favorite grays, honestly. Adding in some more of that ultramarine blue. And we could add in some of the, this is permanent red orange. Just add a teeny bit. Sometimes I'll overdo it, but it really just warms up the color. So you can see the difference of how adding two different kinds of red can really change the color a lot and change the green. This makes a more golden color compared to the more gray color with the quinacridone magenta. I do have a pre-mixed green here. I think doing this again, I would have moved some things around a bit, but I would keep these yellows. You can see the ones I use the most, but probably make the phthalo blue a much smaller one, like one of the small squares, and the red orange color a small one as well, because they're just so pigmented and you don't really need a lot of it. And then I would make the Viridian larger and the raw umber larger, or even swap this out for burnt umber. And I just added in some yellow ochre, and it just makes a really vibrant kind of mustardy yellow green color. But you can also, so say I have this Viridian, and there's barely any left in here, but we're making it work. Then you could add in a little touch of quinacridone magenta, and it just darkens it to such a pretty shadow green color. And I could add more and it would, you know, make it more of a purple color because it's such a blue-green. My other favorite green with Viridian, but I like to add a little bit of raw sienna to the Viridian, and it makes a really, I mean, it says some bare number, but you get the idea, luminescent kind of green that's just really natural looking, and I like to use this a lot. If you're looking to make a really dark green, there's a couple options with this palette. Because the phthalo blue is so pigmented, you can get some of that. And then get your yellow. And then you'll want to find a complementary color. So there's a couple different options for how you can approach this. One would be to use the complementary color. I find that a warmer red is better for making darker green sometimes, like depending. So let's see. You're gonna just probably need more pigmentation. So this is kind of a browner green, but it makes for a nice dark green. And again, I used the pure yellow, phthalo blue, and the red orange, permanent red orange. You could also, if you want to make it darker, I have Sodalite Genuine over here. And you can use that as kind of your blue. And that also makes a nice green color. You could even add a touch more red, touch more blue. That's maybe a lot of blue. And it's almost making a brown kind of color, but it makes for a really nice dark color. But when you dilute it out, it's just still really transparent and fresh. So it's not gonna, you know. But the last thing I'll show is if you're wanting a kind of further away color, you know, these grays are really nice to use because you'll want to add more blue to your color, but you could also add some of this lavender to it. So say you have this kind of yellow color, you could add some lavender in it, or really any color. I mean, you've got this darker color, and it just kind of tones it down so that when you have your color in the background, it kind of just cools it down a little bit and just pushes things off. Because when you typically, warmer colors will come forward because of the way that our eyes perceive and take in the light. And so when you have a, you know, further away color, there's going to be less light, and so we're not going to see the warmer tones. So here's the colors that I have and greens that I can work with from this palette, and that mixes that I use a lot. I hope this was helpful for you if you're interested in creating your own travel palette, or if you're wanting to purchase a Art Toolkit palette. I would highly recommend them. I've used this so much, clearly. I need to refill these colors. I'm going to be making another video, I'm going to be making another video about setting up my folio palette, and that will come out sometime soon. I hope you're able to get into something creative today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!